Noah's Ark. This is a subject that I really like to talk about, deal with it a lot on my podcast, talking about the flood and such like that. The reason I like to talk about it is because it has a lot to do with the world that we see today. If you look at 2 Peter chapter 3, it talks about the world that then was being overflowed with water. And if you pay close attention in some of the early chapters of Genesis, especially with regards to the Garden of Eden, and you see the 4 rivers that are coming out of Eden and such like that, what you can glean are some clues from the text that seem to tell us that the way the world is arranged right now is largely a result of a global catastrophic flooding event that took place around 45 or so hundred years ago. Now, this is not how the history of the world is interpreted on conventional theory, for obvious reasons. You can't have millions of years and a catastrophic global flood, and the reason you can't have both is because both together could not explain the features of the world as it is, but apart, either one is able to explain the data that we have. Now, as somebody who subscribes to the flood view, I would argue that the flood view actually explains the data better. Of course, people who don't subscribe to the flood view would probably see it just the exact opposite, that the global flood view, in fact, does not explain the data better. Nevertheless, one of the big things that comes up in this is this idea that Noah has got to have millions of animals on Noah's Ark. And I find it surprising how many Christians who've never really looked into a good answer for this. As a matter of fact, there are many older Earth creationists who also believe that this is a really big problem and that, something that would be an insurmountable issue for the biblical creationist, the young age creationist to overcome. Ultimately, though, it's a fake problem. It's a false problem. No creationist interpretation of the past, no young age creationist interpretation of the past, has millions of animal species on Noah's Ark. All right. Now remember, Noah was instructed to bring the animals on 2 by 2, 7 of some. Okay, and so what happens is evolutionists a lot of times will extrapolate based on the number of species that we have in the world today and say that the appropriate number of species would have needed to be on the ark back then, and that doesn't make sense with the dimensions that we have that Noah was instructed to build the ark with. So is this a problem? No, it's not a problem. There would not have been millions of animal species on Noah's Ark. In fact, to be very conservative, and I mean very conservative, at the absolute max, you would need 15 to 16,000 animals. That's at the absolute max. But recent studies, as creation baraminology and genetics and as our understanding grows, that number keeps shrinking smaller and smaller. Right now, the best estimates are somewhere between 2,000 and 6,000 animals, which will more than fit on Noah's Ark with absolutely zero problem. I mean, no problem whatsoever. So, many feasibility studies have been carried out, which also speak to this particular issue. But the reason that we believe this is the case is the species that we see today are largely genetic variants, of course, of animals that existed a long time ago. We don't believe in the fixity of species. In other words, when we look at a panda bear today, it's not obvious to me or to creation scientists that a panda bear would have been on Noah's Ark, or would have needed to be on Noah's Ark. It's likely that all, if not most, bears today descended from a single common ancestor pair of bears, something that would make up the bear kind. Right? And so whatever that was, representative living at the time, that would have been on Noah's Ark. And the bear kinds that we have today would be representative of that. And similar for dogs, similar for cats. Many studies from secular scientists have been done showing that cats, as intuitively obvious to any 4th or 5th grader, share a common ancestor and are all related, whether it be a house cat, a tabby cat, or a lion. All right, so the cat kind is what we're talking about. The bear kind, the dog kind, and so on and so forth. And we don't have all of that ironed out yet. We're still working on that. But with the estimates that we have today, we're looking at somewhere between 2,000 to 7,000 animals that would have needed to be on Noah's Ark in order to get the genetic diversity and the special diversity that we see today with absolutely no issue whatsoever. So don't get tripped up on that. There were not millions of animals on Noah's Ark, nor did there need to be millions of animals on Noah's Ark. Comfortably fit between 2,000 to 7,000, and that's all that would have been required.